Thank you for that, Nat. The back channel that we have going on with the organisers, Nat's apologising for her dog. I'm mostly disappointed we didn't get to see the dog. I think if you get to hear the dog, you get to see the dog. These are the rules of online stuff. And my understanding is that Bernard, who's about to join us on Skype, his dogs have just joined him in the room. Do be prepared, Bernard, to show off your dogs. So let's go over to our entire panel. Good evening, panel. Artie seems to be without video. We've lost Artie. No, there she is. Lovely. Artie, while we were going through that bit of video, we did actually get a question for you from the audience. So I guess I'll start this panel discussion by asking you that question, and then maybe other people also have a perspective on it. So the question is from Alex Dimitrov, who asks: in some enterprise organizations, part of the challenge is that the existing engineering teams don't have experience with the newer technologies. What have you found to be an effective way to upscale the teams en masse?
That's a very interesting question. And having done this a few times around, I can safely say that it depends on the individuals you're looking to train. You find that some people are naturally more inclined to self-learn. They'll go register themselves up for a bunch of exams the moment they know that public cloud adoption is on the agenda. Then you're going to have the individuals that are only going to do what they're told. Very, very typical of human nature in that different people learn differently. And what we end up doing in most of these organizations, where we typically end up bootstrapping the initial implementation, is run a series of classroom sessions. Have the team sort of start to own some of the work with us, shadow them in learning, because no matter how many exams you've written, unless you've actually delivered the solution yourself, you're not going to be good at it. And so giving them a safe space to practically experiment their learnings is something that we end up doing by creating a number of dedicated lab environments where they do not feel the pressure of, if I get this wrong, something's going to happen and then an incident's going to get triggered. So most organizations have the ability for people to sign up to various cloud providers for courses. Many of them use their partnership with AWS and the like, or any other public cloud provider that they're adopting to offer a number of opportunities either for certifications and learning. But the most important thing comes from working with teams that have done it before and experiencing it yourself and actually working in lab environments and then doing the solution yourself rather than any other sort of offline learning.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's good. Good insight. So I guess the thing that unites the four of us as a panel this evening, which is entirely inadvertent, is that we all work for cloud consultancies. So yourself, Artie, you're with Deloitte. Bernard is with BJSS. The BJ in his name is, I'm assured, not also the BJ in BJSS. Just to be clear about that. Yoyo, CloudReach, and myself at the Scale Factory. I guess maybe Bernard, you'd like to pitch in on what you've seen as the sort of best way to upskill teams in the organisations you've been working in.
I think Artie actually said it earlier, that there's very little resistance to cloud, even where there's not much technical knowledge within the management team. And every significant project I've been on for the last few years, BJSS has introduced lunch and learns, game days, and taking the team through new skills, scenarios where they have to do their job within a specific scenario with cloud, and it's been hugely successful. The feedback has far outweighed the investment as a sort of value add from the consultancy.
Gotcha. What about yourself, Yoyo? How did CloudReach tackle the upskilling of engineers in their client businesses?
Yeah, as we all agree, the training and upskilling is really a very prevalent issue across organizations. So in CloudReach, we actually have a structured product called the Cloud Education Program. So the idea is we kind of offer a curriculum to our clients. We use a combination of in-person and virtual training, but well, I believe that mostly virtual training these days, to kind of like help our customers upscale their engineers to adopt cloud, because we believe this is actually not, the upscaling is not only about cloud, it's actually about the whole technology, innovation, about automation, because this is how things should go in the future and how it will go. So it's actually at an education level rather than just a training or certification.
Got you. And what do you find that people struggle with the most when they're learning cloud for the first time? What's the sort of topic area or particular maybe service that most people struggle with in the AWS landscape?
I think it's really kind of a shift of their values, what they recognize as their own value in their workforce. For example, a frequently used example is the upscaling of DBAs, database administrator. So like in the old world, there are people who basically manually operate database, do daily checks to do database patches, things like this. But as we all know, in cloud space, because of the shift to managed services, this role is actually kind of partly redundant. But it doesn't mean people who used to perform this kind of jobs don't have their own value. They are the people who know the best about the organization's data. This is not something that any consultancy can go in to say, okay, we can just replace those domain knowledge. We cannot, because we need like years of experience to understand organization's data so well. So I think a key in any consultancy job like ours would be to guide them, to guide the organization to realize their value, the values of their employees in a different setting. I think this is very valuable, not only in terms of the project delivery, but also in terms of the whole society level, I guess.
Right, yeah. So individuals don't need to necessarily fear for their jobs just because everything's changing, because the context that they have within the business is an important thing in and of itself, not easily replaced. Bernard, maybe thinking about the sort of technology areas that you see kind of bringing into an organisation as part of a transformation or a sort of cloud migration. What are the tech things that you see teams struggle with?
Redundancy and failover, especially within the operations organisation. The developers seem to very quickly get the idea that they're not just developing code, but they're developing infrastructure. But the operational teams struggle with the idea that their service level agreement, they say, how long does it take us to recover to a different availability zone? And having to explain that, no, you're actually already in that availability zone. Or the fact that they're purchasing managed services, and they still expect to have very granular manual control over managing the fact that database or that Kubernetes cluster will actually recover in a different region or a different availability zone. It's non-intuitive. It's non-intuitive ideas. So much is actually already organized for you. To be quite frank, it's just another crack team of operational engineers that you have at your disposal. And it's the scaling of those services that makes them so affordable. And that's where I see is the difficulty. It's not so much in the development side and the deployment side, it's in the operational side of organizations.
And it's the sort of mindset shift where I guess when I talk about this, I talk about it as the sort of below the give a shit line, right? You don't need to care about all this stuff down here, whereas as a sysadmin, you're maybe used to having that level of it's just stuff to care about. That today there are people employed by Amazon who are caring about that on your behalf.
It's almost the same as what Yo-Yo just said. For people who've developed their careers knowing these skills, it's actually quite difficult to let go and focus on what is actually the more fun stuff. It's the cream on top of looking after all those the detailed, intricate management of those services.
Yeah. Artie, would you agree with these two assessments? Is there anything that you've seen teams struggle with that maybe BJ and Yo-Yo haven't seen?
I think Bernard hit the nail on the head in terms of saying that it's a lot about the operations teams sort of changing their approach to how the service is managed. Because to his point, a lot of times when you start the transformation, people are focusing very much on the development teams, the developers, and the people building out the platform. That operations is an afterthought, and they're not probably coached as well or sort of informed as quickly as the others are. So they often end up bearing the brunt towards the end, and they're the people that are actually managing the production environments. But instead of just educating them on public cloud solution, probably spending a lot of time coaching them on monitoring and how that works and how to sort of focus their energies in terms of what is it that they need to resolve, is the coaching that needs to be given to them specifically. So having a operation-specific training is probably what some organizations are missing the trick on, which is where you end up feeling that the operations teams are often playing catch up.
Gotcha. You talked about, I think, Artie, in your content, you referred to DevOps teams, right? And like my original sort of the flag that I would sort of get behind, I suppose, from 2009 onwards was the DevOps scene, right? That was we referred to ourselves as a DevOps consultancy. Today, I think DevOps is pretty, I guess, ingrained in sufficient places that it's the assumed default, or at least that's been my experience with the people we've spoken to more recently. I think the DevOps community would sort of take issue with the idea of a separate DevOps team, and I sort of I have conflicting views on that. So talk to me about, I guess, the difference in responsibilities from what you've seen with what you refer to as a DevOps team versus what are the operators responsible for? What are the, is there a platform engineering team? Are there SREs as well? Like, what do the dev teams do? Do we just have five silos now instead of two?
Yeah, it's quite interesting, right? Through and through in all of these transformation programs, one of the first things we need to do is dispense a lot of myths around the marketing jargons. More often than not, all consultancies are probably at fault for this a little bit. Everyone does a demo, builds up a solution on AWS in 20 minutes and says, this is how getting stuff on AWS or any public cloud platform is actually going to be. And that creates a perception that everything is a 5-minute job. Nothing is a 5-minute job. As a consequence, people end up thinking that you have end-to-end accountability. So you operate your sort of alpha, beta dev environments as well as you operate the production environments. You're a DevOps team or you have a DevOps mindset, however we want to use the terminology or the marketing around it. But that doesn't quite work for scaled organizations that have 10,000 or 20,000 developers and 40,000 applications. It is not the same context. So you do need to have some silos where people are working 24/7 to make sure that they're responding to incidents, if any. And as a consequence, the eyes on glass team that are looking after what's going wrong and responding to it has to be a dedicated team in organizations of this scale. It can't be a 10-people engineering team that's looking at both the development effort as well as keeping the lights on 24/7. So that's where I'm probably highlighting the difference between the operations team that's making sure everything is up and running and the DevOps team that's making sure everything is taken care of from design all the way through to deployment. Call them the platform team, call them the team that's shifting the responsibility to the developers to the left so they can automate their pipelines and deploy what they need. You need someone that's focused on an effort. Too much context switching is not going to help. You can't be the team that's designing and scaling the platform while also being the team that's doing a functional implementation for a core transaction processing engine, and also be the team that's running the production environment. So there needs to be sufficient separation in a way where you're able to focus and get a task done. The marketing jargon has left a few organizations in a position where they think one individual can do all these 50 tasks. We all would love to be that superhuman, but we aren't. That's the challenge. So while I use the term DevOps team loosely, what I mean is the team that's responsible for building out the platform that everyone can consume, and the application teams that are focusing on the feature and functionality by taking control of how they deploy into the platform, and the ops teams that are making sure any sort of outages are immediately responded to. I don't think any of us enjoy being woken up at 3 a.m. in the morning or at midnight, and that's why we do need those teams as well.
Yeah. Bernard, is that your perspective as well? Do you believe in the idea of I guess giving all operational work to a separate team who get woken up instead of the developers who possibly committed the code that made that thing fall over?
I'm a consultant, so the answer has to be it depends.
It depends, yeah.
I think Artie and I have most recently worked in very large organisations, and also in the financial sector. And there's separation of concerns or separation of responsibilities, which is a fundamental security principle, means that in actual fact, you don't necessarily want the people with the power to create code and enact functionality to actually be able to deploy that functionality. So to some extent, you do have different teams. You have to have that separation of concerns between teams, which is unfortunate. But that said, across most organizations, it's not always developers that are the best people to say it has to go. We often neglect the test teams, especially the non-functional testers. In my experience, non-functional testers, they are, I need to say something rude, they are very good at automating stuff. And those same skills are automating those big test loads and gathering all those results and putting up dashboards of results. They're exactly the skills that you need in the middle between dev and operations. And I've started to use the word trust a lot, because the business stakeholders trust the test team to make sure that their requirements are being met. The developers like working with them because they're automating, they're proving the code works, so the code keeps going out quicker. And the operational team also say, well, as long as it's being tested by those people and it's passed these automated tests, then it's passed. So I think as long as the communication's good, my current thinking, and it does keep changing over time, is it can be a dedicated team in DevOps. Oh, sacrilege.
Fair. Yo-Yo, what's the CloudReach position on this, or what's your personal position? Maybe they're different. Maybe that's an interesting thing to talk about as well.
Yeah, I think what Artie and Bernard said are already quite comprehensive. I totally agree that it really depends, and for some large organizations, it's not possible to get rid of the separation of duty. Interestingly, I'm currently on a sabbatical from CloudReach, so I'm actually joined a very, very small independent game development team. So what I found is a lot of work methodologies is very, very different from what I have been used to in the past few years with large organizations. Like here, like everything, like in a very small team, sometimes even like automated tests can be a burden because you only have limited developer resource, whether you want to allocate this developer's time in developing new features. And maybe hire a couple of other people to do the manual testing, or you can have this same superstar developer working on also automating the code. This is a conflict as well. So I do think like even small teams have this kind of concerns. But speaking of my personal position, I'm totally for automation. I think in CloudReach we have a saying that when something is not automated, it's not done. This sounds maybe a little bit radical if it's the first time you hear that, but if you think about that, if something is not automated, you hand over to someone else, the chances someone will have to read through all your code, all your logic to understand what you try to achieve, to understand how to even test it. So I guess that's part of the reason where this saying comes from.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's good insight. I don't know if you can tell, I'm wearing my reInvent T-shirt from last year, where I had to go to Vegas, which is the worst place in America. Thankfully, the virus is stopping us from having to go there this year. Although it does mean that reInvent is now 3 weeks of solid wall-to-wall online content. Maybe it's coming up soon, right? It's the end of the year. Yo-Yu, in your presentation, you sort of mourned the lack of a Google Cloud Run like solution for Amazon functions. Is there anything else that you're looking forward to hearing about at reInvent? Is there something that you would like to see that you're hoping is on the Andy Jassy list this time round?
Well, same as every year, and reInvent is a big. When reInvent is happening, it's a real big thing across CloudReach. Our favorite thing is absolutely watching the keynote, waiting for either Andy Jassy or other big shots in AWS mentioning the name CloudReach. That's the highest, the best highlight in all the 3-day reInvent every year. Personally, I'm actually a little bit, at the moment, a little bit divorced from this consulting business. So I would like to leave this time to Artie and Bernard.
Sure. Bernard, what's on your Christmas list?
Security integrations. Am I talking? Yeah.
You are, yeah.
Security with everything. I've been fascinated with their underlying networking infrastructure and interconnect is becoming more and more intelligent, and the security product opportunities on there are massive. So that's my Christmas list.
Gotcha. Artie, what are you hoping for?
So, I mean, obviously security, because I think Bernard and I share that on our list because of working in financial services specifically. But additionally, I mean, real perspectives in terms of embracing multi-cloud and talking about multi-cloud, because it's really true. And most of our clients are banking their bets on multiple providers. And having a solution that plays nicely with other clouds rather than creating more workload would be good.
I mean, is that likely? Do you think that's going to happen?
I mean, it's a Christmas wish list, so
right.
Not necessarily it has to happen.
If you're really good this year, you're going to get a multi-cloud workload. Yeah, I mean, we're streaming today on Twitch, which is an Amazon-owned product. It may well be that we have gone off the air with you having mentioned multi-cloud as a thing. I guess we'll see. Good stuff. I think we could probably wrap it up there. It's been great talking to all of you. We haven't had any other questions from the audience. Hopefully that's because we've been entertaining enough for them as it is. But great to get your insight and thanks for joining. As Nat says, we've been working on our sort of inclusivity stuff. It's great to see a diverse set of speakers, a diverse set of panelists, and a diverse set of opinions as well. Although I guess we could be a bit more diverse next time and not have a bunch of consultants join the panel. but it's at least means that we're all capable of talking shit for 30 minutes, which is of course one of the core skill sets of consultancy. So thank you very much, Bernard. Thank you, Yo-Yu. Thank you, Artie. And we will see you again soon, I hope.